Welcome back to the IE427 Garage, everybody. Today we're going to be working on the Russ Thompson turn signal switch and a new option that Russ is offering. Alright, so many of you that watch this channel may know that we did a modification to the Russ Thompson turn signal switch a while back on Michael's car, where we pulled the momentary push button that was in the end of the turn signal stock, and we changed that out with a latching push button. And what this does is it allows you to eliminate some of the wiring confusion and a second relay that would normally be used in order to use that button for your high beam and low beam. So with the latching switch, we can eliminate that relay and use just one 5-pin relay. So a 5-pin relay is one of the they're real common relays in the automotive, and especially in the automotive security and like car alarms and start, remote start and all that kind of stuff. But the relays themselves have been used in the industry for years to control cooling fans, and like in the Ron Francis harness here, we've got one for the cooling fan, we've got one for the fuel pump, and then we've also got one for the horn. So it's that same type of 5-pin relay that you guys have probably seen before. However, Russ is now offering these turn signal switches with an option for a latching switch. I had discussion with Russ about 2 weeks ago, and he was in the midst of putting together one for one of our buddies, Mike Everson, and asked me for the part number that I was using. And honestly, I bought a 10-pack of switches off of eBay, so I didn't have the part number. But I went ahead and I sent Russ a link, and then I told him how I mounted it, and I think he may have even watched the video. So now he's offering the turn signal switches with the latching switch or latching button option. So here it is mounted in the car. And if you remember the other video that we did for Michael's car, it's the same type of thing. So when you push the button in, it'll push in and hold, and then you're going to go ahead and push it again, and it's going to release. So we're going to mount a weather pack connector, or a Delphi connector in this case, to the end of the wiring, and then we're going to wire that in to our relay. And so I'm going to go over quickly how that is accomplished, and then how we're going to kind of incorporate it into the dash harness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how most of you are going to do this in your car. I'm going to do it a little bit different, because I'm going to actually pull a lot of that dash harness away from the back of the dash and make it more easily accessible for me. But you can just leave it in place and it'll work just the same. But we're also moving the wiring for the hazard light switch, and we're moving the wires for the turn signal right and left anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull those the high-low beam harness out from the dash, and it's actually going to go behind the dash now. So let me go ahead and catch up with all you tomorrow as I am starting to wire all of this into the back of the dash harness. Alright, I'm going to be dieting a lot of this stuff out of here because it's stuff that just adds to bulk behind the dash, but your build may include, some of these wires. So just because I'm taking them out doesn't mean you have to. So for instance, I'm going to be taking out the speed sensor wires, which are this green and gray wire. I'm going to be taking out the harness that we're talking about right now, which we're going to mount a relay to. And I'm going to locate that behind the dash rather than as part of the dash, because I like it to be serviceable without pulling the dash. So just because I'm doing it on the particular build I'm working on doesn't mean you're going to be doing it exactly how I am. So The main portion that we're dealing with is these three wires right here, which are the low beam, the high beam, and the actual headlight feed, which is the blue wire. Now these are going to tie into a Tyco relay. A Tyco relay is just one of these 5-pin relays that you guys are probably familiar with that control your fuel pump and your cooling fan and stuff like that. So we're going to tie those on to, in this case, we're going to terminal 30, and there's a diagram on most of these when you see them. So right here is the diagram. So terminal 30 is going to be our headlight circuit in, and then 87A is going to be the normally closed, meaning when the relay does not have power, that terminal is going to make a connection between terminal 30 and terminal 87A. Those are going to be your low beam. So 87A is going to be the terminal which you tie the red wire onto, which is your low beam. And then, of course, 87 is going to be the terminal that you tie your high beam into. So when you give power to the relay through the latching switch on the end of Russ's turn signal switch, that will energize the relay and it will turn your high beams on. Now the other two terminals here, it doesn't matter which one you use for what. In this case, I'm going to use 85, and I'm going to feed it gauge power. So right here, and there's normally more than one gauge feed power in the dash harness. I'm just showing you this one because it's the first one I grabbed. This is actually going to go to your voltage gauge. But that's the power that we want to pull off of in order to feed this relay power, because we only want this relay to be energized anytime that the ignition switch is on. I mean, the chances of you having to toggle your high beams on and off while the engine is turned off and the ignition is, you know, the car isn't running are pretty slim. So this way you don't forget and leave your high beams on, and the next time you get in your car, you're driving down the street, you turn your headlights on and you're blinding everybody. So to me, I just tie this on to switched power. So that's going to be this gauge feed power. And so that is going to go to terminal 85. The other side is what we're going to actually ground the coil of this relay with. That's what's going to turn it on and off. So basically, we're going to take one side of Russ's turn signal switch and we're going to give it a chassis ground. And the other side is going to come back up to here to terminal 86. So the other side is going to come back from Russ's turn signal switch, the button on the end, and it's going to feed terminal 86. And that's what's going to basically make and break the power to the coil. So anytime the ignition's on, there will be power on terminal 85, but it won't have a ground. And so by switching the ground, we're able to energize and de-energize the coil on the relay, and therefore we can turn the high beams on and off. So they'll toggle in between high beam and low beam. So I think that pretty much explains that portion of the wiring. I'm going to go ahead and add a diagram for the relay and the ground to and from Russ's turn signal switch button in the description box, but I'll see if I can add one here as well for each of those. All right, so what I have here is I have installed a Delphi connector, a 5-pin Delphi connector on the ends of all the wires for the turn signal switch. So these two black wires are the two wires that I'm talking about that go to the button. So one of these will be a chassis ground and the other will be the ground to activate and deactivate that relay. And then of course the other three wires are your common and your turn right and your turn left. I've just found that the 5-pin connector makes it really easy. If you ever have to pull the dash out of the car, you don't have to just leave the turn signal switch kind of hanging there. You can disconnect this once you pull the dash far enough out and pull the connector out through the steering wheel hole, and then put that aside so it doesn't get hurt or damaged or anything like that. So I think that's going to pretty much explain to you how the button works. What you're going to do for the wiring of the turn signal switch is basically all right here. And so what I like to do is I like to pull the wires that I'm going to use for all of the turn signal switching. So that's going to be these 3 wires for the turn signal switch itself. So let's see, 1, 2, I got another one. Here's the other one. So the gray is the signal power, and then the greens and the yellows are, I believe, the right, not wrong again, left turn signal. The blues and the white are the right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull these back to this connector, and I'm going to intercept them here, and then they're going to run over to the turn signal switch, and that's going to be what we're going to use for right, left, and common. We're going to mount our hazard light switch over here. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm telling you that a lot of those wires are going to be dieted out or dieted back to a certain point, because I'm moving things for each of these builds to a spot more in keeping with the way we build the cars here. So just because I'm doing this here doesn't mean you have to do it in your car. I'm trying to explain all of this stuff and give you the diagrams for the most common way that you're going to be seeing this done in any of the builds that you're doing. As I was working on this video for the last week or so, everything was great. I was getting everything ready to wire in, and I even sent an email off to Russ with a diagram, actually two diagrams that he had requested. Actually, the 2 diagrams that I'm including in this video, and I didn't hear from him. There's, I mean, there wasn't any reason to to think that there was anything wrong. Sometimes that'll happen, just all of us. We get busy with life, and you forget to return an email, or you don't see it. You're just busy and you haven't checked email in a couple of days. I got word 2 days ago that Russ was in the hospital. And I put up a thread on the forum letting everybody know, send out some prayers for Russ and his family. He's in the hospital. He had a stroke. Everything indicated that the stroke was fairly serious. His wife and son said he was in critical condition. But we all hoped that Russ would bounce back, pull through, and that just wasn't the case. Russ passed away yesterday, and this is going to leave a great hole in the Factory 5 community. And I'm going to be selfish for just a little bit. First thing that went through my mind is, how is this going to affect me? Russ provides these turn signal switches. He provides all kinds of stuff for the Factory 5 community. And the first thing that went through my mind was, well, now what? And then after that, I went to the, how's his wife doing? How is his son doing? His family doing? And that's where I'm at now. So I didn't want to end the video without letting you all know that there are going to be some changes, obviously, for Russ's product. At this point, we don't know. It's too early to know what's going to happen with Russ's shop, what's going to happen with Russ's products, and if anybody is going to step up and take over Russ's role to do this. Not that anybody can replace Russ, but maybe someone could step in and at least provide the services that Russ has provided, for all these years for the Factory 5 community. So as we finish up this video today, please say a prayer for Russ and his family. We'd really appreciate it.